You saw a thumbnail, you know what we're doing today. Today we're taking a look at Misty, the light jack-o'-lantern, a unit that I bet probably a lot of you guys forget what it does, or you remember at least the old skills and you don't know these skills after, because a lot of these things change over time. A lot of players come back to the game, they're like, oh, the unit does the same as it did 2 years ago. It doesn't do the same as what it did 2 years ago. So Misty, the light jack-o'-lantern, think about him kind of like the water lich, which we see him right next to the water lich. They're very similar. Both of them are immune to CC. Both of them stack their stats over time. The water lich does stacks his attack power and defense if the enemy lands a hit that's not a critical hit. The Misty does every time an enemy's turn ends, he stacks his attack power up to 150%. He stacks his attack power 15% every time an enemy's turn ends. Also, he does, like I said, he's immune to CC, right? So he's got a first skill, same as Chilling. He does a speed break. It's a multi-hit. Second skill is a multi-hit as well. It does an attack power break. It does a defense break. It's also good with additional damage artifacts, right? So good against CC teams, good with additional damage artifacts. Well, we didn't even finish talking about the unit. Second skill does multi-hits. First skill does multi-hits. Second skill does attack power break, defense break, and a heal block. Another thing I want to mention, which kind of goes without saying, it's kind of obvious, but it's a light unit, so you can take it into anything. You don't have to worry about element advantage or disadvantage, like, for example, the Water Lich, as we see here. You might not want to take against a full wind team, or the Fire Monk, you might not want to take against a full water team. Not that we really see too many of those, but some people are getting pretty cocky with the Mo Long Mooses this season. They're like, I'll just take Mo Long Moose, I don't have to worry about anything. Full water team YOLO. So, man, this Riley, I know we're talking about Misty today, but man, this Riley is so good. She's just so good. So for Misty, I would just want to go, I think he might actually be on triple revenge here. I'm not entirely sure, but for Misty, I would want to go fast, tanky, because remember, his damage is based on speed. Tanky because you want it to survive a long time. So that he keeps stacking up his passive over and over and over again. Damage received from as many different things as you can, and also as much additional damage because he's got all those multi-hits. So additional damage in artifacts is going to be strong on him too. So that's kind of how I would think about doing Misty. So let's, I always want to say, like, let's see how it goes. Let's see how RNG goes. That's really half of Summoner's War, is just let's see how RNG goes. And that's how that's how we see who wins and loses, is based on RNG. So he's dead, but he did survive long enough to actually do his thing. And now we're just going to see Riley and Fire Bison just dominate anything because they're on the field. Riley can't be stopped. Riley can't be shung-punged. I mean, she can, but also she stacks totems. So we really just saw, I feel like Riley and Fire Bison's got this. Riley's so good. She really is. She can't be reset. I mean, she can. Don't get me wrong. She can be reset, but if she's got those totems, then it really doesn't matter. She's going to be able to use those totems regardless. So I'm going to say this is GG. I don't really see the Samoth coming back, and they're just upset that they lost to a Misty. Are they upset that they lost to a Misty? I wouldn't be upset that I lost. I'd be upset that I lost in general, not necessarily that I lost to a Misty. Next match, opponent is trying to Gani Hathor. So Gani Hathor versus Misty. Misty, we got the Diana, we got the... There's not a whole lot of... There's additional damage on that Gani Hathor team. There's the additional damage from the Fire Bison. There's the additional damage from the Juno, but there's really not a whole lot of damage aside from that. Like, the Chiwu's not going to do a crazy amount of damage. Hathor's not going to do much of anything. So, do they actually... Okay, so they get the... They were going for... They wanted the defense break more than the cleanse and immunity. Ghost appearance. They get a heal block, but that's about it, though. All right. Then they get the slow, which is not bad. So we're seeing a lot of revenge. This is a different player, and we're also seeing revenge, which is a great... I mean, if you're going to try to CC the team, CC. I wonder if Vampire Revenge... I don't think he... Oh, he is on Vampire Revenge! I was thinking that too. I was like, I wonder if Vampire Revenge would be a fun build for him. Would be a nice build for him. But he is actually on Vampire Revenge. So, there we go. Kind of similar to... I mean, kind of similar to, like, the Water Lich. A build that you could use on the Water Lich. A build that you could use on the Fire Monkey. Fire Monkey heals himself, though. So, Water Lich, I feel like doesn't do enough damage. I have it on Vampire on one account, but I feel like it doesn't do enough damage. Or maybe on both accounts. I don't know. I just never feel like it does enough damage with Vampire, that Water Lich, even after he stacks. So, I want to see more of this Misty. Because remember, the attack power gets buffed up to 150%. So this is basically game at this point, especially with the Vampire on him. I mean, he did half the Chiwu's HP right there. So... That's game. That's game. They're not going to be able to get through all this damage. Yeah. He's just going for the... They didn't even need to go for the human form. They're just like, let me finish this off faster. Just YOLO. It's fine. They're not going to be able to Juno this. They really aren't. I mean, it did... Juno is healing when he does the skill. So he's definitely not going to skill 2 with that Misty there. He's just going to keep doing... Because that does too many debuffs. Juno would heal way too much. So, yeah, at this point... There you go. GG. I know you guys probably posted it in the comments, but actually I want to clarify something that all of these Misties we're taking a look at today are on Vampire Revenge, or at least so far. I went back and I looked at the first one. That was even on Vampire Revenge as well. So that's the build for Misty is Vampire Revenge, which is nice because that means that you don't need to worry about like, oh, I need to get more Violent Runes. I need to get more Swift Runes. I need to get more Despair. I wouldn't put him on Despair anyway. He doesn't strip anything. He doesn't do any AoEs, so I wouldn't even bother putting him on Despair. So there you go, Vampire Revenge. Just farm some Necro. You guys probably have more Vampire Revenge runes than you do have Violent Runes that are just sitting around there. You're like, okay, I need Violent Runes for everything, but Vampire Revenge, I can afford to use some Vampire Revenge on things, right? And also, Misty's a fairly easy to sculpt because you can get the Jack-o'-lantern sculpts from the Guild Magic Shop. So there you go. All right, so he's got the Trickster. He heals some HP there, which again, didn't quite notice at first. How did I miss? You know what? Sometimes I wonder how I missed many things. So Ghost Appearance, and that winds up just obliterating that. Also, additional damage and artifacts, man. Misty's great with additional damage and artifacts. Misty's great against CC teams. Misty is easier to skill up than you. There's no reason you would need to do nice 2-turn sleep. Why? That's not... There's reasons you would need to do the 2-turn sleeps, but there's no reason you would need to Devilmon Misty ever, or any of these Jack-o'-lanterns, because you could just get the sculpts from the shop. So there we go. More Misty beating things. Very nice. This guy first picks a Praha into a Wusa. That's one of the things that I've actually been doing. I've been doing on my Europe server account is Wusa's everywhere this season. I'm just getting used to picking double strippers basically every match. I don't even want to say almost every match. Every single match is just double strippers of some kind. So Praha is great for against Wusa for 2. They banned the Wusa anyways. It doesn't really matter. But Praha is great against Wusa for a couple different reasons. Number 1 is she's got the full strip. Number 2 is she has that big heal so that if something gets... Because not all strippers heal, right? So if something takes damage... Look, that did... Well, it's got an attack power buff. So it did a decent amount of damage to Helena. He still goes for human form. Do they get the revenge here with the Verti-heal? Because that could have been nasty if they got the revenge with the Verti-heal and human form. She had like very little HP. That Verti-heal with the attack power buff could have nuked her down. So as I was explaining about and it did finish the job over there, but as I was explaining against the Praha, it also counters, not everyone's picking Praha. Some people actually picking Praha. They really like Praha. I really like Praha. But that was one of the units in the beginning of the game. I was like, man, I really like a Praha. Like, she was so hot. She was so... Oh, she's still hot. She was so popular in the beginning of the game, and then, you know, like, she kind of cooled down in popularity, and then I finally got one. I was like, yeah, Praha. Riley's so good, too, man. Riley's so good. But, yeah, Praha's just a great pick against Wusa. Can strip AoE, strip all of Wusa's buffs. Also can heal up whatever Wusa does damage to with skill 2. Can AoE heal anything from that. I'm starting to feel like maybe they just like to use Misty sometimes. So, I mean, there is still some turn cycling here. There is still some, like Yenhong turn cycles, Praha turn cycles. They also have the CC from the Molong, the CC from the Praha as well. So, I suppose that there is still that, but maybe they just like to use Misty. So, does a decent amount of damage there. Got lucky and cut in and cleansed there, because if they did not cleanse right there, then that Kaki would have done lethal damage. So, they kind of lucked out and did not get that lethal damage there. Wow. Speed tuning. That's why grinding every little bit of speed from your units sometimes is the difference between winning and losing. So, some damage on the Molong. It's pretty much over. They did use the Reckless Assault on that Wusa. I feel like I would have done the Reckless Assault on something else. Maybe they just threw the phone, and that's why they Reckless Assaulted the Wusa. Because they're like, well, Molong's not going to target wind units, so he's either going to target Misty or he's going to target Wusa. So, I just would have, I would have gone for, I would have picked a different target. But yeah, that's basically it. That's Misty. I think he's an underrated unit. He's a great unit for CC. He's also a good unit for other places in the game, not just RTA, but he is a good unit against turn cycling CC teams like Gani Hathor, but we don't really see we still see some Gani Hathor here and there. We don't see too much Gani Hathor right now in the current meta, so he's not going to be great for every single match, but I think he is still, he's not a difficult unit to rune up and have in your arsenal for when you're fighting certain teams. You're not going to pick him a lot, but when you do actually, or if you're this person, you're going to pick him all the time. But he is a decent unit. He's decently easy to rune up. He's decently easy to skill up. So he's, I think, worth at least having in your arsenal for those little niche picks that you want to pick him here or there. Again, unless you're this player who wants to pick him every match, which kudos to them. But that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoy. I will see you as always in the next one.